Welcome everyone to this month's teacher conversation about focusing attention with some co-teachers here. Do you all just want to say hi briefly? And we'll go into introductions in a minute.
Hello.
And Ranga's going to lead a little grounding meditation before we kick things off officially. Thank you.
Sure. So get into a comfortable posture, one that is upright and relaxed. And you can start by spreading your awareness throughout the whole body. Just noticing how it feels to be here right now. So as we get started today, this is an invitation to feel your presence. To let go of what does not serve you and to gather your energy, your mindfulness, your awareness, your love, really all of you, to gather all the elements of your being here in this moment in the body. See if you can fill up your body with a bright, alive, energetic awareness. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes.
Thank you. I feel much calmer. I needed that.
Great.
So my name is Tessa. I am hosting for Hannah today. And I'll also be contributing as a teacher. But I just wanted to invite you two to introduce yourselves, tell us a little bit about your background, and maybe just briefly, like what you hope to share today.
Go ahead, Herky.
Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Herky. I've been a within meditation teacher for over 2.5 years, practicing meditation for 14 plus years. I'm also a mom of 3 kids. I used to be a project manager for over 15 years, but now I've gone all in and I do mindfulness meditation plus life coaching. I do one-on-one and I do workshops. Today, the focus is on focusing attention. So we'll talk more about that. Over to you, Ranga.
Thanks, Herky. So yeah, hi everyone. My name's Ranga. I've been practicing meditation for about 22 years, teaching for the last 5 years or so. And my sort of background and training is in Buddhism, different forms of Buddhism, as well as Taoism. So today, yeah, I'm quite excited to talk about this topic, and I tend to share some contrarian views, so we'll see how that goes. Yeah, so it's a pleasure, and I'd love to hear an intro from Tessa as well.
Yeah, thank you. I think it'll be so interesting. We're coming from such different backgrounds. I come from a yoga background, so yoga tradition, and that's kind of what led me into meditation about a decade or so ago. And I've been teaching since 2017, started with yoga and got more and more into the stillness practices that have called me more than the movement ones these days. So I pull from my background from the yoga tradition, from other thoughts and studies. So I'm really excited to hear what both of you think. And I suppose I'd specifically work within a yoga nidra style of meditation, which is kind of like hypnosis. It's deeply relaxing, and there's a lot of focused attention in it, and that's kind of part of its power. So I'm excited to see the overlap in this today. Well, I think let's take a look at kind of that overlap between the meditation experience, the meditation practice, and then what focus has to do with it. Ranga, do you want to jump in on that?
Sure. Yeah, so, focus and attention are, I think, what a lot of people think about when they think about meditation, right? It's sort of become a synonym, right? Meditation's about focus and attention. And so I think today I want to talk about how that's true and how important attention is in this practice, but also about how it's just one element. But I think before I get into that, it's probably more important to really give focus and attention its day in the light, and sort of speak to its merits. So I invite either of you to speak in that direction if you're so called.
Yeah, if I may, I wanted to back up a little and just talk about like the three pillars of the aspect of mindfulness in terms of intention, attention, and attitude. So I feel like if how we want our life to be. So for example, if I just want to go meet Tessa, make it very simple, layman terms, point A to point B. So my intention is to connect with a friend, to have a good time together. Maybe we go for a nature walk together, and I'm looking forward. So my intention today is to go drive to Tessa. Now my attention will be on the road, and to have my, hands on the wheel and to go. But it is also possible that I get distracted by I stop at Starbucks on the way, which is fine. I stop at for a little bit of groceries, or I meet another person, and then I have another phone call to take, and before I realize my day is over, or I have only like 5-10 minutes left to spend. So my attention was not where I intended it to be. Also, the aspect of attitude, it's not just that, oh, at 6 p.m. I will meet Tessa. What attitude am I driving it with? Am I taking in the journey? Am I relishing that? If something happens on the way, if there's a traffic jam, am I moving into anger, frustration, or am I more, I can remove the piece of judgment? Am I also showing kindness and compassion to myself, to others? So there are such beautiful pillars that are interwoven together. And attention gives us the ability to move our life in the direction we wish for it to be.
Yeah, I love that overlap of how your intentions can be one thing, but your attention can be another. And then how you respond to that, right? The attitude part is a whole nother part of our attention. And I think that's kind of interesting, is like, what is attention in general, right? Like, what are we even talking about when we say focusing attention? How would you define attention, or what would you liken it to?
That's a really interesting question. Yeah, I think so. As I mentioned, I come from a Buddhist background primarily. And in a way, we're talking about mindfulness. I think Herky introduced that word, right? Which from my tradition, it comes from a word called sati. So this is an ancient language called Pali, sister language to Sanskrit. And sati comes from the word sat, which means presence. So part of what we're talking about in terms of attention is the ability to be present, to stay with. It's sometimes translated as recollectedness. So as she's describing, you're driving and then the Starbucks and the call comes in. It's like, can you stay with, what's your ability to stay with something? And I think when I think about focus and attention, there's also a sense of gathering. Attention is not just an on-off switch. Like anything else, it's a spectrum. And part of what happens in the practice of meditation is we get more sensitive to subtleties in that spectrum. So attention is something that we can actually gather and build. And that brings all sorts of other things. And it gives us a sense of skillfulness in life. So maybe I'll pause there. I'd love to hear how you guys think about this concept as well.
Yeah, I like that idea of gathering, right? Because there's so much internally and externally, but that idea of drawing it all into alignment, almost like that narrowing down. And I think of attention as awareness, I suppose, like as our consciousness. So how in tune are we with our awareness? I'm losing my train of thought a little bit, but that, pulling in our consciousness, like what we think, how we think, and then driving that focus from it, that gathering of it, and putting it in one direction. That's kind of how I think of this topic. What about you, Herky? And welcome, Tim.
Yeah, welcome. Yeah, like you said, so I would call it like putting the flashlight on where you wish for it to be. So during the practice, we may focus on the breath, on the body sensations, the sound, and our mind will constantly wander. And we're bringing our focus back to where we wish for it to be, such that we're more present with what is versus either ruminating in the past or projecting the future. Just gives you when you're able to place your attention where you wish for it to be, there is more stability in your life.
Yeah, and when I hear that, to me there's like an aspect of, again, skill and strength here, right? Like we know what it's like when the mind is distracted and when we're not able to direct it. And at least for me personally, I feel weak in those moments, relatively speaking, right? But when we can direct the mind and sort of tame the mind's habits and tendencies to go to the past and the future, there's a sense of strength that comes. So attention is really it's a foundation of meditation practice.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. Almost like you're just spread thin, right? When you're just like going in a whole bunch of different directions. It's that shallowness rather than the depth that comes when it's gathered into one focus. Yeah, that's a great.
Yes.
I like how
And
you
I
see that.
just want to add that for a lot of people who are new to meditation, or it's one of the big meditation myths, is people say, I cannot sit, I cannot focus, I cannot have any attention. Either they give up too soon, or don't even give it a fair try. So just noticing, like, Ranga's talking, and we are sitting in meditation, we're noticing the mind wandering, and that is also, we're noticing it, it's coming into our observation, our awareness, our experience. And you are getting to know, for me it's such a great tool for me to get to know what's going on in my mind, for example, and to not engage with it, to not be trapped by it. One of the biggest benefits that I experienced after mindfulness is, like, I noticed that as soon as I wake up, I have these huge thoughts that are 95% wrong about estimating. We have the negativity bias on how it should be. And this happens more in the morning, but I'm more settled throughout the day. And when initially I started practicing, I noticed, from not believing everything that is going on there, first of all, getting to know what's going on inside my internal experience. What are the body sensations I experience? I also noticed that during meetings and stuff, I would feel a lot in my stomach. So I would carry a lot of emotions stored there. I learned techniques to relax myself, but also to notice it's a sense of freedom you get when you're not entrapped by whatever is coming through, but you're witnessing and observing almost from a distance.
Yeah, I love that. It brings to mind a simile that I recently heard from a Tibetan master, a Rinpoche, that was visiting New York. So he gives a simile of a dog, and you're throwing a rock sort of away from the dog, and the dog chases after the rock, and then you throw another rock, and then he chases after that, and the dog keeps going, and so that's how we chase our thoughts, and we really fall for something, the illusory nature of the thinking mind. And then he said, but when you train, you become like a lion. And what happens when you throw a rock at the lion? The lion looks back, and the person who throws the rock gets scared. Right? So there's this awakening that happens when we're able to tame that mind. So I think attention, and we it's interesting because even when in the way that we define attention, you can see is actually different between the three of us. So there's the idea of awareness, there's the idea of attention as it relates to intention and attitude, right? So it's actually very interesting to listen to what you guys have shared so far.
And kind of building on that, do you think, well, do you agree, I guess, that this is something that you can learn to develop? Like this is a skill that, like a muscle that needs to be strengthened over and over again, and then you get more, more defined attention? Or do you think some people are just naturally more suited to it and this comes easier? Or do you think it's on a continuum? How do you feel about that sort of like training aspect? Like, can we learn to be more focused?
Yeah, I think yes, in my experience and in teaching others, definitely it's a skill that can be learned. It's like going to the gym and building up that muscle. And again, each one's journey is different, but it can be learned. And from scientific studies, it is now known that even people with ADHD or other genetic dispositions too can learn the art of training the attention, training their mind.
Yeah, there's a Zen master, Shunryu Suzuki, who said, "You're already perfect, and yet there's room for improvement." And this is part of the paradox with mindfulness, which I differentiate a bit from attention. But the paradox here is, in a way, mindfulness needs to be developed, but also it's already here. As Tessa alluded to, when you think about awareness, even when you're distracted, there's something that's aware, witnessing the distraction. So I definitely agree with Herky. Yes, you can absolutely train attention. Nobody is born with perfect attention. But I also think that for some of us, and I would put myself in this camp, if you make the training of attention your primary focus in meditation, it won't go very far for some of us. And you really need to ask yourself, like, how important is it to you to train attention, to train focus? If that drives you, if that calls to your heart, then yes, go for it. And you'll know by how often you go and sit on the cushion. But for a lot of people, I shouldn't say for a lot of people, for some people, that may not be the most motivating factor. So when you bring in these other elements, even as Herky was talking about attitude, like I could feel my heart really rise to that. How can we color our lives via our attitude? And for me, enjoyment is a big one. What I noticed is that when I started meditating, looking for joy, trying to enjoy it, then the attention started to come more. And these two work in a cyclical nature. They're supportive. But I digress. So let me pause there.
Yeah, I really want to dive into that further. That's the second half about the putting all your focus or all of your meditation practice as a form of practicing focus. But let's jump back to that, because I wanted to just thinking about how it could be a skill that can be developed. I think too, part of that is our environment, which so many of us overlook. Is like, it's going to be so hard to focus when there's all these distractions around, right? If you forget to turn your phone on do not disturb, if the kids are screaming in the other room, if there's traffic. I mean, there's ways to overcome that, of course, but I just wanted to bring shed a little light on that we can set ourselves up for success. And it's still going to be hard. It's still going to be a work. It's still going to be a journey, but we can help to limit the things that hinder our focus and our attention. And I think that's something that we just forget about, is like how much control we actually have over our environment and how we can use that and manipulate it in our favor rather than always having to work against it. Because I agree that I think it can be a skill that is developed. And I do think some people are naturally it'll just be more natural for them to fall into these more focused states. But I do think that everyone can get there eventually. And then I guess that kind of circles back now I'd love to hear more about kind of what, correct me if I'm wrong, but it kind of sounded like focusing during your practice on developing your attention, on developing your focus, kind of misses the point of meditation, would you say?
I wouldn't say it misses the point in that, for me, maybe, right? But this practice is deeply personal, right? And I think it's really important to listen to your own heart and see what's calling you to the meditation cushion, what's calling you on your spiritual journey. And attention and focus are extremely important. It's foundational. So there have been times in my teaching career where I would say the opposite of that, but I've come around now, and I respect it. But yeah, I think you asked if it's missing the point. Well, what is the point of meditation? Right. So from a Theravada Buddhist perspective, it would be to eradicate suffering, what's called dukkha, stress, suffering. From a Mahayana Buddhist perspective, it would be to see emptiness, the illusory nature of life, so that our hearts can be full of compassion. From a Vajrayana Buddhist perspective, it's something else. It's about actually transforming what's difficult, ugly, and disgusting into something that is wood for the fire, for our spiritual fire, right? So I'm just throwing these different things out here to say that I don't believe there's one right view here, but I do feel that at some point in meditation practice, we'll start to get attuned to something that feels right for us. So I mentioned enjoyment, right? So for me, at some point, I started realizing that actually this practice is pretty enjoyable, right? And for me, it actually came at a point when I allowed my mind to have some freedom, and in particular, stopped judging myself when the mind would wander. I think as modern day people, we have a tendency to judge ourselves, to compare ourselves to others, and that's no different in meditation, right? So for me, learning to let that go a bit and just trying to sort of sniff out where's the joy right now, right? So maybe that's a helpful clarification. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to clarify.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just piggybacking first on what you were saying, Tessa, on the external environment, I wholeheartedly agree that as much as possible, trying to create a space, a time for devoting it to your well-being, and whatever that looks like, and whether that looks like 10 minutes, 30, or a corner or a room, for space, creating those space, turning off the notifications at that time. If it helps if you're unable to sleep in the night, then keeping your cell phone out, or anything that helps, or not checking first thing in the morning, making it a rule not to check your phone. All these are, in our modern day digital distractions, there is digital minimalism is also extremely helpful. And the spaces we create such that it's more inviting to come to that space, on a daily basis. And Ranga, I love the aspect of, the heartfulness, I would say, of meditation. For me too, it's past 14 years has been a combination of many things. I grew up in India, and I grew up with a lot of bhakti yoga and wisdom teachings, and the four paths in Hinduism, like they say, the karma yoga, the Raj yoga. So karma yoga is doing action in the world without expecting the fruit of that action. So such that whatever you do it with your full heart and not expecting anything, in return. Let nature take its course to whatever you're destined to do. And then Raja Yoga is the path of meditation. Jnana Yoga is the path of knowledge, so removing the ignorance. And, when we read, our mind opens up to or gain wisdom, not just bookish knowledge, but more wisdom. And that could be through various sources. And Bhakti is more devotional path wherein you lose you, basically, in whatever your devotion is to. And sometimes, and it to each their own. But for me, it's very appealing because it instantly sparks the heart. Like, I don't know, as a mom, when I see, like, I don't need to give any bookish explanations about my love for my children, right? It just springs forth. And same thing I feel, just because I didn't have when talking to some of my friends here, they had a negative connotation to the experience of God or devotion or whatever. But for me, it was a very positive experience. The sounds, the vibrations, the community, or just me losing me. Um, is a very uplifting experience, and I carry mindfulness into that too, so such that when I'm in that space, I try to be there instead of engage. So if I'm in a community, I don't want to engage in any talking, which sometimes you gather together and it soon turns into something else. Or when I'm alone, then I want to really it's so enjoyable to not worry, to surrender, to have that joy, and to just be, to let it go, to release the reins basically. But so one can devote their life to like one practice or a multitude of practices, and I have no trouble. I don't call myself a certain this or that, but it definitely helps. So because attention sometimes sounds like a very strict word, a teacher is telling you pay attention, right? It reminds you of that. Why are you so distracted? Learn to pay attention in math, and they have these memories of a strictness about it. But I think Daniel Siegel in his book, and it's another author in mindfulness for ADHD, very clearly explains that how this can be done with ease, with curiosity, with playfulness. I mean, attention can be given. Like, why would I not? If I want to pay attention to my dog, I can really do it with ease, you know? So,
I love a lot about this. So first, just that everyone can find their own path, right? Like, I do think we've sometimes in our culture, especially, we get focused on like, this is the right way, every other way is wrong. But you're both saying that there's so many different paths. And I agree that you just, my teacher would always say, there's many paths up the mountain. Like, we're all going to the same place, but you just got to find your own trail to get there. And it's going to be hopefully different for everyone. And the more you can experiment and try different things and read and expose yourself to all these rich traditions, I think the more information you'll find about which path is right for you. And maybe, like Herky said, you don't identify with any of them and you're just out there whacking your own path, which is beautiful. And I also love too that you both touched on like our humanness, that we have, this is, I would say, a spiritual practice. This is almost like helping us to define our humanity in a lot of ways, just meditation in general, but then also like being accepting of our humanness, wanting to find the joy, wanting to incorporate other parts of our life into it as well, that it's not like this rigid, hard lines of like, this is the only thing that can exist. It's also like integrating the beauty of this life, right? That we're all just here experiencing what it is to be human, and we can't deny that either. Like, integrating that, I just love that as well. Any other thoughts there before we kind of veer off? That's such a big topic, so I want to give it more space.
I don't know if you want to take a question from Tim. Would you like to ask anything?
Yeah, did you have anything on your mind?
I always do.
Good.
That's why I tuned in here. Maybe I can get some of that out,
Mm-hmm.
No, the only thing what I'm enjoying hearing that there's many paths and it's personal. And, I read all these things. I could feel like I could teach this after 20 years of being in this mind-body psychotherapy role, and how the West and the East blend and all that. But just a couple of things I could for a second is just like when I'm breathing, count 1 or 2, or count I am relaxed or whatever. But I do I am relaxing, like I'm still in the process of getting there, which gives me a break rather than, I'm there already. No, I'm breathing. Maybe after the 5th breath, I will be there on 36, and I always have a thing I call 5 Alive, which is nothing new, but it's just the 5 senses. It takes 5 minutes walk around outside or where you're at and try to notice what you're hearing, seeing, tasting, feeling. That sort of helps bring it back. The Zen walk, I know I've seen that advertised here too, that somebody goes on a Zen walk, or a walking meditation. And then I came up with a Harry Potter kind of thing which I looked it up and it's not real, but I just have a wand and I'll say to these problems, I'll say eradicus dysphonia. So to eradicate the dysphonics, the things that aren't, I don't need to hear that. I want that gone. And these are all the little tips and tricks. I asked Hannah, I think, well, the question would be, what are the tips and tricks everybody has? And I'm hearing it from each of you. And it's your own personal journey. You can't give me one and I'm going to fully embrace that. And that works for me because that works for you. Breathing works for everybody. So yeah, just finding more peace of mind during the day. And the day is like 3/4 gone and go, God, I haven't breathed deeply. That's even a beginning awareness. So, but anyway, no, and this is a wonderful forum for me to hear you as humans, as spiritual travelers, or whatever, of what's going on for you. So I don't feel like, oh, I'm not doing it perfect. So it's really freeing to hear this. And basically I have a fantasy of sitting with a Buddhist monk somewhere in Southeast Asia, and they say, do you taste the rain? What? Or, just those little koans or whatever little things to spark the thought. And who was it? I forget, the Vietnamese Buddhist. Somebody asked him, they were saying that, oh, do I sit this way? Should I fold my arms this way when I meditate? And I think he said, what I heard was that just smile more. That was the answer. Even smiling brings a sense of, oh, all right, I'll be quiet. I'm in this journey now in the last, 20 years, 10 years, 5 years of my life. And I just sort of want to tune in a little bit more in the midst of doing crazy work. But anyway, thanks for listening.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. And I think you touched on a lot of that too, like the humanness, right? Checking in with the senses or having a mindful walk. Like you have to be human to do those things, as far as I know. Right. So we can use this meat suit, which I love that term, to like help us to develop our spiritual awakenings and our attention that gets us to these other places. But we have to start where we're at, right? Which is human.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Did you all have any thoughts on personal tips or tricks to kind of help to develop your focus, especially maybe as a new meditator or as someone who's meditated a long time and still feels like they haven't really gotten that when it's still every couple breaths, you got to bring it back?
Yeah, first of all, again, just want to express my appreciation for Tim. And it's lovely to hear some of the tips that he's been collecting throughout his journey. And just to say, you can, at least I can sense how excited he is about some of these techniques, which go to show how effective they are for him, right? So that's feeling your authority on this path and listening to your own heart. So I really appreciate that, Tim. The number one tip or technique that I would share is that your body is a home for your awareness. The body is a natural home for our attention and our awareness. So right now, if you're watching, what's it like to look at the screen and then also feel your whole body? To just spread your awareness throughout your whole body as you listen. And I sometimes do this when I'm teaching a corporate seminar or something, I'm just like, everyone look at me, and they start giggling. And I'm like, all right, now feel your body. And what happens, what you may sense, is this spaciousness that arises. The mind tends to converge attention. It's like it goes into our phone, boom, converged, right? So there's this narrow focus that goes external. So when we just keep one eye on the body, there's a great sense of timelessness, presence, spaciousness, selflessness. The body is here in the moment, and the body doesn't think, it feels. So this is, it's called Mindfulness of Body. And there's this one Thai teacher, Ajahn Mun, who said the body is a cave of wonders. So for me, this practice of attention and awareness it's about collecting that in the body. And then the body becomes really interesting, like a cave of wonders. It's really amazing what will come into our sense of this body. So that would be my my one tip for today.
And just to build on that, like from a yoga nidra perspective, that is like almost what it's all about. It's like one of the key components is the body awareness, the body scan, but it's not a mindfulness scan. It's very specific, right? You feel the tip of your index finger, and that sort of like honed in attention makes it so there's just no space for anything else. And that's kind of the magic behind it, is by creating such a narrow focus, like the phone, but it's just this little tip of your finger. Like there's just no room. There's no room for the rest. And you just get more and more relaxed into that awareness and into those little minutia of the body. And then eventually you can let go of the body because you've paid attention to it all and move beyond the body. And I love that overlap, that's part of your tradition as well.
Great. Yeah, that's awesome.
Fascinating, Tessa, like how with the index finger too, like, because I know that body awareness has been extremely helpful, they call it somatic therapy or whatever, but tuning into your body, but they say the body doesn't lie. So not only that you gain awareness, like Ranga, you were saying, of what's going on, but also I feel like it also gives me indicators of when it's quite not okay, when I'm not feeling too safe in a environment or in a situation. The body, just because now I have tuned in it and I have deeper connection, I know that I may be able to justify with the mind, but my body is giving me a signal it's not okay to be here. Sometimes there is also trauma response or response from the past, and you enter a situation, and sometimes there is also like a fight flight response, and you can take perspective on what you need to be. But I know that I use stop technique a lot, the mindfulness stop, which stands for stop, take a deep breath, observe, and proceed. I also teach this in corporate settings. Most of the times when people say I have no time for meditation, I tell them this is 60 seconds and let's do it together here. And so right now where we are, we can just stop what we're doing, ask people to remove their devices. Even if it's a pen and paper, just remove everything, a pause, take a few deep breaths, or take 1, 2, 3 deep breaths. Observe. You may observe the outside for a few seconds, but observe internally more. Notice if your jaw is clenched, if your neck or shoulders are tight. Notice how your chest and belly feel. Your legs. Are they fidgety? Are you feeling calm and centered? How are you feeling? And no feeling is wrong. You're feeling frustrated, sad, happy, angry. Welcome, whatever is present. And then finally, P, proceed with what you need in the moment. So this is the point where I tell people, maybe once you observed, you notice that you probably need to take a glass of water or take a few more deep breaths, or whatever you are currently doing, you need to disconnect either from the mental chatter or the external. Maybe you realize you need to take a walk. Maybe before answering that email, you wanted to have a thoughtful response versus react. So it's very easy to use. 1 minute is all it takes. And it helps me a lot, whether it's work or whether it's my child is having a tantrum or whatever. It's helped me recenter and come back. Yeah. But great tips by Tim too.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Tessa.
I was just going to state I think the obvious one is using, again, our devices and our environment to manipulate our experience. So set a reminder on your phone to do a stop practice or to do the 5 senses practice. Because I think, especially if it's a newer part of your life, a newer habit that you're developing, we just forget, right? We've got those short attention spans, especially if you're new to this, you haven't strengthened that muscle yet and developed those skills. So we need those reminders. So setting, like you mentioned, Herky, that sacred time and place for your practice, but then maybe another couple times throughout the day, you just take that pause, you take that internal check-in and kind of see what's going on, and if you can move in a better direction for yourself to set yourself up again better for the rest of your day. Yeah, we have all these tools and all these technologies, and as distracting as they are, they can also be used in our favor, which, you know, kind of is a nice harmony. Since we have them, might as well use them to our benefit.
I love that.
Yeah,
using the phone to fight the phone, you know?
Reminds me, you can't beat them, join them. I was trying to play Fortnite with my son because he won't get ready for school, and I was pretend playing that I'm in the game. So yeah, use it to your advantage.
Go ahead, Tim.
What do you think of hypnosis? I had a wonderful therapist my age for about a year, for example, going in and in deep relaxation and focusing on a computer screen. How can I get rid of all this stuff from childhood? And all of a sudden the computer screen, as I'm visualizing it, I pushed the button delete, and it all scrolled and deleted all of these past memories. And then coming out and getting cognitive feedback, and it just takes me down about 10 steps of unwinding and focusing, and then having it melt away or reframing it or seeing something. But do you have any thoughts about hypnosis?
I can jump in that because there is such an overlap with the Nidra style of meditation. And you're right, like that taking you down a few steps, both hypnosis and yoga nidra will slow your brain waves down almost without fail. So when we're going from like these beta, especially like when we're in our waking state, we have lots of thoughts and things to do, and, you know, kind of like a heart rate monitor, the mind is just going crazy. And then going down into alpha, it's like more of a creative, almost like a flow state where you're just kind of more focused, but still awake and aware. And then you can go deeper beyond that into, it sounds like theta or delta, maybe with your experience there, where you're really impressionable, where you're like beyond the thinking mind and you're getting more into your subconscious. And that's when you can start to play with those sort of like rewriting those scripts or introducing a new intention, sankalpa. When you're in that really susceptible state, you can play with that. So I haven't done a lot of hypnosis, but I know the overlap is huge, and I'm a big fan of using those quieter times through the meditation practice or through hypnosis, when you're actually talked into this really receptive state, and then using it intentionally, like what do you want to plant here instead, or what do you want to try to work through or rewrite or let go of. It can be a really, really powerful way to let some of those things go, or to change your relationship to them.
Yeah, super interesting. I don't have experience in this area, but I'm certainly open to it. It sounds, you know, pretty intriguing.
Yeah, I've had about 2-3 sessions with somebody a few years ago. It was pretty good, I would say, just going back, and that combined with inner child meditation. So going back into like rewriting, like you said, the script, or just processing what had happened. I think it was very good. Yeah.
So I think, again, it kind of depends on you, right? Is it part of your journey? Does it work for you? Does it leave you feeling better? Right? We just got to check in with ourselves.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, fabulous. Any final thoughts, any final tips to leave people with that they can take away and implement today or at their next seat on the cushion?
Yeah, I have a couple. One, I want to bring this word into the meeting. So this ancient word called samadhi, samadhi, which is translated in a lot of different ways, most typically as concentration. But I feel, my favorite translation is unification, harmony. It's a coming together of the mind, the body, our energies. So it's a collectedness, and we talked about this earlier. I think Tessa used the image of butter being spread too thin on bread, which I love, and it actually reminds me of a Lord of the Rings reference where Bilbo says something where he's been wearing the ring for a long time and he feels like butter spread over too much bread. And that's kind of what happens to us as human beings. Our energies are kind of too far out. And so with meditation, we're bringing them home. So this idea of collectedness, I find that word to be more useful than attention and focus for some people. Because as some of the teachers, I think both the teachers alluded to, this idea of like grinding your teeth and really like focus attention, like that typically isn't helpful. So collectedness, what's it like to bring all of you into this moment as if the body were a vessel and we don't want water to leak out of it. And if there's a couple holes, it's okay, right? But we want most of it to be retained. So that's one thing I wanted to bring up. And the last thing, which I think is really important, and in my personal opinion, it's more important than what techniques you do in meditation is your view of what meditation is. What is your conceptual framework? What is your view of what meditation is about? And so if it's attention, just to be careful, just make sure that that view is important enough for you to compel you to practice. I'll just throw out a couple other potential views that you can use to supplement with. So one might be, well, meditation, it makes me more available to my friends, to my family. It's how I bless the world. It's how I, improve the world. A meditation could be about wisdom, coming out from the enslavement of certain thoughts and habits and traumas and finding our way to a freedom of view, freedom from illusion. And it could be really about enjoyment. It could be about, as Jack Kornfield says, when we're present, we look into the eyes of the ones we know. We look at the sunsets, we look at the sunrises, right? And when we're mindful, when we're present, the leaves on the trees become the pages of the holy books, right? So there's a lot of different ways to view meditation practice. And that is what I implore my students to really focus on. Find a view that speaks to your heart, that moves your heart. Yeah, thank you.
It reminds me of like find your why, right? Like the Simon Sinek of like, why are you here? What's the point? What are you hoping? What direction are you hoping to move in? And of course, that'll probably change and be influenced as you proceed down the path. But right, having that kind of idea of why you're here, what you're hoping to get out of it is, really helpful. Thank you.
Absolutely.
You have some thoughts, Herky?
Yeah, somebody asked me to, they were new to mindfulness and how it has impacted me. And I started writing. And it was, you forget when you've been doing it for a while, how it has benefited you. And I feel like there are so many, from the smallest to the biggest, things that it can do for you. And like you're saying, find your why and also find out what has shifted or changed. Simple things like being able to tolerate discomfort, whether it's the discomfort of the posture, the actual sitting down, or the emotions that come up, not numbing it, not denying them, not analyzing, not fixing, pretty much what we do in our meditation practice, right? And you carry that into your daily life because you're constantly You may be triggered. There may be some things around me. There may be pain in the body. There may be so many things that show up, but you are looking at it with non-judgment, with curiosity, going deeper into what it is, if need be, not rejecting or denying why it's here, even a backache, not rejecting, but maintaining that open awareness and curiosity is huge. And then also something like, we begin again. So the mind wanders, you bring it back to the breath. The mind wanders, you bring it back to the breath, with an attitude of not being judgmental towards yourself that, oh, I cannot do it. It's not for me. It's for those monks, or, but no, removing that element and acknowledging that you did come back and you can begin again. And again, carrying that into your daily life, it has helped me, because when I would get into an argument with somebody in my younger years, I would be like, no, I have to prove my point. Wait. But now I'm able to let go so easily. And when I'm able to let go, I'm also able to take perspective and understand where the other is coming from. And have more like compassion for myself, for my not expecting too much perfectionism, So it has translated into as a project manager with my team, just remaining more curious about what's going on. How can we creatively come up with a solution versus, just attacking each other. And savoring those moments, like Ranga, you were saying, the sunset or whatever is dear to you, your children or whatever. And then you're just savoring those moments more, such that there is more joy that you experience. So yeah, it's definitely worth giving mindfulness a try, or continuing on your journey if you're already there, or whatever form of meditation appeals to you.
Yeah, I heard a lot of, you kind of summed it up there at the end, but that compassion for yourself, right? And like, we're only human, we're just doing the best we can. It's never going to be perfect. And then for the other as well, for people, that don't meet your expectations. And then you realize maybe that's because you have expectations. That's another topic.
Right.
But yeah, having that almost softness about yourself, right? Of like that loose grip of just letting things be and not feeling like you need to control, but having the compassion to just almost have that hands off, like that surrender of just letting things be. That's wonderful. Thank you. Tim, did you have anything to add before we wrap up?
I'm ready to go practice and forget work.
Enough talking.
You guys are wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing from your hearts. And it's really helpful. The sense of community helps too. So.
Thanks.
Yeah. I'm so glad you could join us live. It's nice to actually have a few more people in the room. So thank you for being here. And just to send people on their ways, how can they practice and learn more from both of you? And then I'll go last.
I teach on Sundays at 11:30 a.m. Eastern, which is 8:30 a.m. Pacific, and on Mondays at 8 p.m. Eastern, which is 5 p.m. Pacific.
Thank you. Yeah, I also have two classes. So one is the Miracle of Mindfulness. That's on Tuesdays at 11:30 a.m. Eastern, 8:30 a.m. PST. And then on Thursdays, there's a class on Buddhist and Taoist principles. That's at 3 p.m. Eastern and noon PST. Thanks.
Exciting. I also teach at noon on Tuesdays, though, Pacific time, and that's a Nidra-based class. So if you want to dabble with my version of hypnosis, please come. It's less scary than it sounds. And also just wanted to point out that now with Herky's class change, we have a daily class at 8:30 every morning, 7 days a week. So if you like the idea of not thinking about what time you're going to practice every day, that's a really nice way to do it, helping to focus your attention on a time slot. That can be a really great way to establish that habit. And then another tidbit is just wanted to let you know that we have a mindfulness and goal setting workshop with Kim later this month. That'll be Saturday, October 21st at 10 Pacific. So hopefully you can join us for that one. And just stay tuned. We've got some exciting retreat-ish announcements. That's all I can say coming up this weekend. But thank you all for being here, for being part of it, for sharing, like Tim said, from your hearts. It's just so appreciated. So nice to spend time with you all and hear more about you as people. I love it. Thank you.
Same here. Very enjoyable. Thank you.
Likewise. Thank you.